Hello everybody, it's now time to look at each of the 4 primary emotional responses. And today we start with joy. Joy is the emotional response that we seek to attain, to have, to maintain as much as we can over our lifetime. It is hopefully the emotional response that we're having most of the time throughout every day. There are things that change that in the moment or for periods of time, but hopefully it's the joy response that we're having most of the time throughout our lives. That's what we're wanting to do. Biologists have talked about approach and avoidance in terms of a fundamental behavioral motivation. And approach and avoidance means basically you want to approach things or have things in your life that you feel good about, and you want to avoid things in your life that are not good for you. And that is true of the 4 primary emotional responses of joy, anger, fear, and sadness, or the acronym JAFS, J-A-F-S. So the joy response occurs in us emotionally when something happens and we like it. It's good for us. We have the joy response. We're attracted to anything and anybody that causes the joy response. In contrast, we are not attracted to, we want to avoid, again, joy is approach, and anger, fear, and sadness, avoid. So anything or anybody that causes anger, fear, and sadness, we want to try to avoid, immediately avoid over time, because it's best for us to avoid them. Over time, like literally history of being human, we've tried to describe and define this thing we call happiness or joy or elatedness or something, and people have debated it, and we continue to debate it on and on and on. Sometimes people just sort of deny it exists. Also we can get rather self-centered in how we try to attain and maintain joy and happiness. We can be harmful to others in doing that. Again, hedonistic, self-centered, that kind of thing. That's not good for all of us together. It's actually not good for the person who's only going out for their own enjoyment, because it's a very lonely life when it's just about you only. It is about us. It is about us individually, collectively, as one. And we achieve that through relationships I'll talk a lot about on this channel. But we want to be careful of understanding joy as something that we pursue individually and collectively, and not at the expense of others or harmful to others. It's also important to understand not only the biological and psychological importance of joy, but to know it is an emotional response to our environment, either around us or inside us, like I've said before in talking about the 4 primary emotions as responses. We have many words in our English language, and certainly in other languages, that mean something of the joy response. They are words like happy, blissful, ecstatic, friendly, hopeful, energized, and loving. All of these words relate to the experience of joy, the emotional response, the joy response. What's important here is to understand that all of these words have some meaning of joy, some representation of the joy response. All of these words that we use, we have, I don't know how many, there are lots of words. I named a few. Lots of words in our English language that relate to and represent the joy response, the fundamental joy response. We need to use these words. They are descriptive. They help us understand and explain and communicate to others how we're feeling in terms of the overall joy response, but it is the joy response. And again, the feeling of the joy response is what's important as we pursue things and try to maintain things that are good for us. Activities, relationships, and meaningful events that are good for us. And we do that by the experience of the joy response. Most of the time subconsciously, not in our conscious awareness, like I am aware of this room right now. There are lots of things in my life right now that cause the joy response. They're in the background. I don't think about them consciously. When I do, then I get a bigger, broader sense of the joy response. This is an episode talking about one of the 4 primary emotional responses, the joy response. Again, it's the one we hopefully have and experience most of the time in our lives. It's very good for us, but I want to make the really important point. The other 3 emotional responses are also very good for us because they help us avoid the things that are bad for us. You see, so experiencing joy in something keeps us attracted to it, wanting to maintain it, and that's good for us because it's a good thing going on for us. And that anger and fear and sadness tell us what's not good for us, not going to be helpful to our overall existing, continued living, caring, which is what this channel is all about ultimately, is existing, continued existing, caring. So when you think about it, all 4 emotional responses are caring responses because I feel good about something, I want to keep that. I don't feel good about something, like let's say in terms of fear, I want to avoid that or get away from that. And all of this stuff helps us continue existing. So next time it'll be about anger. The anger response in broad general. The episode after that is all about fear response, which includes the clinical experience of anxiety. And then the last one will be about sadness, which includes the clinical experience of depression. Until next time, take good care.